The moment Victor Kane flung open the door to his executive suite on the 52nd floor of the Kane Tower, his world cracked wide open. There stood his only son Dante, face buried in the shoulder of the night janitor Jace, the younger man's arms wrapped protectively around him in a way that spoke of quiet strength and undeniable intimacy. "What the hell is going on here?" Victor's voice thundered through the spacious office, bouncing off the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glittering lights of Manhattan. His briefcase dropped to the marble floor with a sharp thud. Dante jerked back as if burned, his eyes red-rimmed and filled with a mix of shock and deep shame. At 26, he still carried the boyish features Victor remembered from his childhood soccer games and family vacations in the Hamptons. But tonight those features were twisted with pain that Victor had never seen before. Jace stepped away calmly, his hands raised slightly in a gesture of peace. The simple gray uniform he wore seemed out of place against the luxury of dark wood paneling, leather sofas, and expensive abstract art pieces that decorated the room, each one chosen by Victor to project power and success. "Dad, please, it's not what it looks like," Dante said, his voice cracking as he ran a hand through his disheveled dark hair, trying desperately to compose himself under his father's furious gaze. Victor's eyes locked on Jace Rivera. The janitor was in his late 20s, with warm brown eyes that held steady despite the tension and a sturdy build that suggested years of physical labor rather than boardroom battles. Victor had seen him around for the past several months, always efficient, always quiet, nodding respectfully in the hallways as he pushed his cleaning cart. Now, however, the man stood there with a quiet dignity that only fueled Victor's rising anger, the kind of anger that had built empires but also kept people at arm's length. "Get out," Victor snarled, pointing toward the door with a trembling finger. "You're fired. Pack your things and leave the building immediately. I won't have some stranger taking advantage of my son in my own office after everything I've built for him." Jace didn't flinch or argue back with raised voices. Instead, he met Victor's glare with calm resolve. "Mr. Kane, with all due respect, I was just trying to help. Dante was in a bad place tonight, and I happened to be here finishing my shift. Help? By holding him like that? I know exactly what I saw, and it stops now. Leave before I call security and make this even uglier than it already is." Victor's face flushed red, his expensive tailored suit suddenly feeling constricting around his broad shoulders. At 55, he was still an imposing figure, the self-made real estate titan who had climbed from a one-room apartment in Queens to owning half the skyline through sheer determination and old-school values that had no room for weakness or deviation. As Jace gathered his cleaning cart near the private elevator, he glanced back at Dante with a look of genuine concern that didn't escape Victor's notice. "Take care of yourself, Dante. Remember what we talked about last week. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone in any of this." The door clicked shut behind him, leaving father and son in a heavy silence broken only by the distant hum of the city far below. Victor turned slowly to Dante, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Explain yourself, now. And don't you dare lie to me after what I just witnessed." Dante sank into one of the plush leather chairs near the massive oak desk, the same desk where Victor had spent countless late nights teaching him the ropes of Kane Enterprises since he was a teenager. The weight of the moment pressed down on him like the skyscraper itself. "It's complicated, Dad. I've been struggling for a long time, and Jace, he was the first person who actually listened without judging." Victor paced the length of the office, his mind racing through every expectation he had placed on his son. He had always pushed Dante hard, private schools, Ivy League education at Columbia, grooming him to take over the family empire one day. The boy was supposed to be his legacy, the one who would marry well, build a traditional family, and carry the Kane name forward with pride. There was even a suitable match lined up with the daughter of a major investor, a woman from a good family who understood the world they lived in. This scene tonight threatened everything Victor had sacrificed for. "Tell me the truth. Has that man been bothering you? Harassing you in some way?" Victor demanded, his voice lower but no less intense as he stopped in front of the windows, staring out at the endless lights of New York as if they held answers. Dante shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips that sounded more like a sob. No, Dad. Jace has been the only person who's actually listened to me. We've talked a lot over the past few months. I work late here trying to prove myself to you, and he cleans the offices after everyone else leaves. One night he noticed I was upset and asked if I was okay. It started from there, just conversations at first. The words hung in the air like a gathering storm cloud ready to break. Victor felt a chill run down his spine despite the perfectly controlled temperature of the suite. He didn't want to hear what was coming next, but something in his son's broken expression told him he had to listen. Outside, the city hummed with life, cars honking far below, lights flickering in apartments where families were probably sitting down to dinner without the kind of secrets that were tearing his own apart right now. Over the next hour, pieces of the story came out in halting fragments as Dante spoke. He described the pressure that had been building since college, the secret he had carried through years of dates with women that always felt wrong, the nights he spent alone questioning everything about his future and whether he could ever be the son his father wanted. Jace had shared bits of his own life experiences growing up in a strict household in Brooklyn, not pushing but simply offering a safe space to talk without the weight of expectations crushing him. Tonight had been the breaking point after a disastrous dinner with the woman Victor had arranged for him to meet, leaving Dante feeling completely trapped and hopeless for the first time. I was thinking about ending it all, Dad, Dante admitted quietly, his voice barely above a whisper as he stared at his hands. I was standing out on the balcony earlier, and Jace found me there during his rounds. He talked me down for over an hour. He wasn't taking advantage of anything. He was saving me from myself. Victor's mind reeled as he processed the confession. Saving him? From what exactly? The idea that his son could be attracted to men was something he had never allowed himself to consider in all the years of planning and pushing. In his world of boardrooms, power deals, and country club connections, men were strong providers and heads of traditional families. This revelation was a complication he wasn't prepared to face. Yet here it was, staring him in the face through his son's tear-streaked expression. He reached for the decanter of scotch on the side table, pouring himself a generous glass with shaking hands. Son, you're confused. It's the stress from work and all the pressure I've put on you. We'll get you the best help money can buy. Therapy, time off, whatever it takes. That janitor is gone now, and things will go back to normal starting tomorrow. But even as the words left his mouth, Victor saw the quiet determination settling in Dante's eyes. This wasn't going to be simple or quick to fix with money or influence. The night that had started with a shocking discovery in the executive suite was only the beginning of a much larger storm that would test everything Victor thought he knew about his son, his family, and himself. The city lights outside seemed to blur as he stood there, wondering how the empire he had built with his bare hands could feel so fragile in this moment. Dante didn't argue right away. He simply nodded slowly, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand as if trying to erase the evidence of his vulnerability. Victor watched him, the scotch burning in his throat, and for the first time in years he felt truly helpless in his own domain. The office that had always been a fortress of control now felt like a cage closing in on both of them. Go home, Dante. We'll talk more in the morning when you've had some rest. I'll have my driver take you. Victor's tone was softer now, but the command was still there, the same one he used in meetings to close deals. Dante stood up without protest, grabbing his coat from the hook by the door. As he passed his father, he paused for a second, looking up with eyes that held years of unspoken pain. I love you, Dad. I always have. But I can't keep pretending anymore. The door closed behind him, leaving Victor alone with the echo of those words and the faint scent of lemon cleaner that Jace had left behind. Victor sank into the chair Dante had vacated, his mind replaying the scene over and over. How long had this been going on right under his nose? He thought back to the last 6 months, the late nights Dante had been spending at the office, The way his son had grown quieter at family dinners, canceling plans with the women Victor introduced. It all made a sick kind of sense now, but Victor refused to accept it fully. The next morning, the sun rose over the Hudson River, casting long shadows across the Kane Tower lobby where Victor arrived earlier than usual. He expected to find the usual buzz of activity, but instead he spotted Jace in the maintenance area near the loading dock, loading supplies into his cart as if nothing had happened the night before. Victor marched over, his polished shoes clicking sharply. "I thought I made myself clear last night. You're done here." Jace looked up, his expression steady. "I understand you're upset, Mr. Kane. But Dante needs someone right now, and firing me won't change what he's going through. I've been where he is, scared and alone because my own family couldn't accept me. I just wanted to give him a friend." Victor laughed bitterly. "A friend? You expect me to believe that's all it was? I built this company from the ground up so my son could have everything. And you think you can waltz in here and turn his life upside down with your lifestyle?" The word came out harsher than he intended, but the anger was real, fueled by fear of losing the future he had mapped out. Jace set the bucket down gently. "It's not a lifestyle, sir. It's who I am, and it's who Dante is discovering he might be too. I didn't push him into anything. We talked about books, about the city, about feeling like you don't fit the mold everyone else wants for you. Last night was the first time he let himself cry about it all." The conversation stretched on for 20 minutes in the quiet corner of the building, Victor listening despite himself as Jace shared fragments of his own story. Growing up in a religious household where coming out meant being kicked out at 18, working odd jobs to put himself through community college, and finally finding peace in the simple work that kept him invisible to people like Victor. It wasn't the confession Victor expected, and it chipped away at the wall he had built in his mind. By the time Victor walked away, he hadn't officially rehired Jace, but he hadn't called security either. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings where Victor found it impossible to focus. His business partner, an old friend named Marcus who had known Dante since birth, noticed the distraction during their afternoon strategy session. "Everything okay at home, Vic? You look like you saw a ghost." Victor hesitated, then told him a sanitized version of the previous night. Marcus listened, his face tightening. "Kids today have all these ideas. Give it time. Send Dante on a trip or something. He'll come around." The advice felt empty, but Victor clung to it as he drove home that evening to his empty penthouse overlooking Central Park. Dante was waiting in the living room when Victor arrived, the city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling glass. "I saw Jace today. He told me what happened. Dad, please don't punish him for helping me." The argument that followed lasted until midnight, voices rising and falling as Victor listed every sacrifice he had made. The long hours, the missed little league games, the college tuition paid in full. Dante countered with his own pain, the constant fear of disappointing the man he admired most. In the end, neither won, but a fragile truce formed when Victor agreed not to fire Jace immediately if Dante promised to see a therapist. As Victor lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling, he couldn't shake the image of his son in Jace's arms. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was a deep, aching confusion about what kind of father he had been and what kind of man his son was becoming. The empire felt smaller somehow, the success less important when the one person he had built it for was slipping away. Little did he know that this was only the beginning, that the janitor he had tried to banish would become the catalyst for truths that would force Victor to question everything he held dear. Weeks passed in a tense rhythm inside the Kane Tower. Dante threw himself into work with renewed focus, attending meetings and reviewing reports as if trying to prove his worth on Victor's terms. But Victor noticed the subtle changes. The way his son lingered in the hallways after hours, the occasional smile when he thought no one was watching. Jace was still employed, though reassigned to the lower floors to minimize contact. Victor told himself it was a compromise, but deep down he knew he was watching, waiting for any sign that the situation was escalating. One evening, After a particularly grueling board meeting about a major development project in Brooklyn, Victor stayed late reviewing contracts. The building emptied out, leaving only the soft hum of the cleaning crews. He heard voices from the break room on the 40th floor and paused, recognizing Dante's laugh mixed with Jace's quieter tone. Curiosity won over caution, and Victor crept closer, staying out of sight behind a pillar. They weren't doing anything inappropriate. Dante was sitting on the edge of a table, sipping coffee from a paper cup while Jace wiped down the counters. "You were right about that book," Dante was saying. "The part about finding your own path hit me hard. I never thought I'd feel seen like that." Jace smiled, the kind of genuine smile that reached his eyes. "That's why I recommended it. My mom used to read to me before everything fell apart. Stories helped me realize I wasn't broken." The conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from favorite movies to the challenges of living in a city that never slept. Victor listened, his heart twisting as he heard his son open up in ways he never had at home. The next day, Victor confronted Dante in his office. "I saw you with him again, talking like old friends. Is this what you want? To throw away everything for some guy who cleans floors?" Dante stood his ground. "Jace isn't just some guy, Dad. He's kind and real. He doesn't expect me to be perfect or to fit into a mold." For the first time, I feel like I can breathe. The argument escalated, words flying about legacy, disappointment, and the future. Victor mentioned the arranged dates, the investor's daughter who was still waiting for a call. Dante finally snapped. "I'm not interested in her or any woman. I tried, Dad. It doesn't work. This is who I am." Victor froze, the admission hanging between them like a physical barrier. He had suspected it, but hearing it said aloud changed everything. That night, he called Marcus for advice again. "He's serious about this, Marcus. What do I do?" Marcus paused on the line. "Maybe it's a phase. Or maybe you need to meet this Jace properly. Invite him to dinner or something to see what he's really after." The suggestion surprised Victor, but he agreed to think about it. Meanwhile, Dante and Jace's bond grew stronger in stolen moments. They met for lunch in the park across from the tower, sharing stories about their lives. Jace talked about his mother who was battling illness and how he sent money home every month. Dante shared memories of his mother who had passed when he was 12, the woman who had always encouraged him to be himself. The friendship was turning into something deeper, a quiet understanding that felt like home. Victor noticed the change in his son, the lighter step, the occasional genuine smile at dinner. It both relieved and terrified him. Then came the betrayal. One afternoon, Marcus stopped by unannounced. "I did some checking on your janitor friend. Turns out he's been open about his preferences for years. Even had a partner back in college. I thought you should know before things go too far." The information hit Victor like a punch. He had trusted Marcus for decades, but now doubt crept in. Was this loyalty or something more calculating? Victor decided to investigate himself, pulling employee records and talking to the head of facilities. What he learned only complicated things further. Jace had an impeccable record, volunteered at a youth center on weekends, and never caused trouble. That weekend, Victor invited Dante to the family cabin upstate for some father-son time. The drive was silent at first, the Hudson Valley rolling by in autumn colors. "I want to understand, son. Really. Tell me about Jace. What makes him so special?" Dante opened up slowly, describing how Jace had helped him through panic attacks and self-doubt, without ever asking for anything in return. "He's not after money or status, Dad. He just sees me." Victor listened, the walls inside him cracking just a little. But as they hiked the trails the next morning, Victor's phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Found more. The janitor has a history. Be careful." The seed of doubt was planted, and Victor couldn't shake it. Back in the city, he started watching more closely, his protectiveness turning into suspicion. Dante sensed the shift and pulled away, spending more time with Jace. The misunderstanding deepened when Victor overheard a conversation where Jace said, "If things get too hard, I'll step back. I don't want to come between you and your dad." Victor interpreted it as manipulation. The tension built through board meetings and family dinners, with Victor pushing harder for Dante to attend social events with eligible women. Dante refused, leading to slammed doors and sleepless nights. Victor found himself questioning his own marriage, the traditional life he had built after losing his wife. Was he forcing the same path on his son? The thought kept him awake, but pride wouldn't let him admit it yet. One evening, at a company gala, Dante arrived with Jace as his +1 after a last-minute decision. The room fell quiet as they entered together. Victor's face burned with embarrassment and rage. "This is how you repay me?" he hissed in a corner. "Parading this in front of everyone?" Dante stood tall. "I'm not parading, Dad. I'm being honest for the first time." Jace stayed calm beside him, offering silent support. The night ended in whispers and sideways glances, but for Dante it was a small victory. Victor went home alone, pouring another scotch and wondering when his carefully constructed world had started to crumble. The betrayal from Marcus lingered in his mind too. Was his old friend truly helping or protecting his own interests in the company? As the weeks turned into months, the relationships shifted in subtle ways. Victor saw flashes of the boy he raised in Dante's determination, and glimpses of genuine kindness in Jace that reminded him of his own father who had worked menial jobs. But pride and fear still held him back from the truth that was slowly revealing itself. The storm was gathering, and soon it would break in ways none of them could predict. The gala incident spread through the office like wildfire. Colleagues whispered in the elevators, and Victor's phone buzzed with concerned messages from investors. He buried himself in work, approving new deals and traveling to Chicago for a conference. But the image of Dante and Jace together haunted him. On the flight home, he replayed every conversation, searching for signs he had missed. Had he been too hard on Dante? The question gnawed at him, but admitting it felt like failure. Back in New York, Dante confronted him in the penthouse one Sunday morning. "Marcus told me what he said about Jace. Why are you letting him dig into my life like this?" Victor set down his newspaper. "I'm protecting you. That man has a past. Marcus is looking out for the family." Dante's laugh was sharp. "Marcus is looking out for his shares in the company. Jace has been nothing but honest. He lost his family when he came out, but he didn't let it break him. He built a life anyway." The argument lasted hours, ending with Dante storming out to meet Jace at a small cafe in Soho. There, over coffee and pastries, they talked about the future. "I don't want to force you into anything," Jace said softly, his hand brushing Dante's across the table. "If your dad can't accept this, maybe I should find another job." Dante shook his head. "No. You've sacrificed enough already. Your mom needs you here, and I need you too." Their connection had grown into something deeper, a quiet romance built on shared vulnerability and late-night talks that made the world feel less lonely. They walked through the park afterward, hands occasionally touching when no one was looking, the autumn leaves crunching under their feet. Victor, meanwhile, met Marcus for drinks at their usual club. "The kid is serious. What do I do?" Marcus swirled his whiskey. "Give him time, or cut him off financially for a bit. He'll come around when reality hits." The advice felt wrong, but Victor was desperate. He started restricting Dante's access to some accounts, claiming it was for his own good. Dante noticed immediately and confronted him again, the betrayal stinging deeper than ever. The turning point came 2 weeks later at the annual company charity event. Dante was scheduled to speak about the youth programs the firm supported. As he stood at the podium in front of 200 guests, his voice faltered. Memories of hiding who he was flooded back, and suddenly he couldn't breathe. Jace, working discreetly in the background as part of the setup crew, saw the panic and moved closer. When Dante stepped down, shaking, Jace was there to steady him in a side room. Victor watched from across the ballroom, his heart pounding. Before he could intervene, Marcus approached. "See? This is what happens when you let it go on." The words pushed Victor over the edge. He stormed into the side room, finding Jace holding Dante's hand. "Enough! I want you out of his life and out of my building by morning." Dante stood up, tears in his eyes. "Dad, if you make him leave, you're making me leave too." The threat hung in the air, changing the room's atmosphere completely. Victor saw the resolve in his son's face and for the first time felt real fear of losing him forever. He left without another word, driving aimlessly through the city until dawn. The next day, Jace submitted his resignation quietly, leaving a note for Dante. "I care too much to be the reason you lose everything. Take care of yourself." Dante found it on his desk and broke down in his office, the sacrifice cutting deeper than any argument. Victor watched from the doorway, guilt mixing with relief, but the emptiness in his son's eyes told him he had made a terrible mistake. That evening, Victor sat alone in the penthouse, staring at old photo albums. Pictures of Dante as a boy, smiling at Little League, brought tears he hadn't shed in years. He thought about his own father, a hard-working immigrant who had never had time for emotions. Was that the legacy he wanted? The phone rang. It was Marcus again, pushing for a new deal that would sideline Dante. Something clicked. Victor hung up without answering. He drove to the small apartment building where Jace lived, knocking on the door late at night. Jace opened it, surprised but calm. "Mr. Kane, come in." Over coffee in the modest kitchen, Victor listened as Jace spoke about his life, the rejection from his family, the nights he had spent wondering if he would ever be enough. "I never wanted to take Dante from you. I just wanted him to know he was worth loving exactly as he is." Victor left hours later, the conversation replaying in his head. The next morning, he reinstated Jace and called Dante to the office. "I was wrong. About a lot of things. Tell me what you need." It wasn't full acceptance yet, but it was a crack in the wall, the beginning of understanding. The crisis had forced them all to face truths they had avoided, and now the real work of rebuilding could start. The reinstatement of Jace brought a fragile peace to the Kane Tower. Dante returned to work with a cautious optimism, and Victor made an effort to join them for lunch once a week in the company cafeteria. The conversations were awkward at first, filled with small talk about the weather and stock reports, but slowly they deepened. Victor asked questions about Jace's mother and listened to stories of the youth center where Jace volunteered. For the first time, he saw the man behind the uniform, someone who had faced rejection and chosen kindness anyway. But old habits died hard. Investors started asking questions about the situation with Dante, and Marcus continued to drop hints about potential problems. One afternoon, Victor overheard Marcus on a call. "If the kid doesn't straighten out, we might need to reconsider the partnership." The betrayal hit hard. Victor confronted Marcus in his office later that day. "You've been undermining me this whole time. For what? More control." Marcus didn't deny it. "I'm protecting the company, Vic. This gay stuff could scare off clients." The words confirmed what Victor had feared, and he ended the partnership on the spot, feeling a weight lift even as the business risks grew. Dante and Jace's relationship grew stronger in the open. They went on real dates now, dinners in quiet Brooklyn restaurants, walks along the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. One evening, Jace took Dante to meet his mother in her small apartment. The older woman welcomed Dante with open arms. "Any friend of Jace's family," she said, her voice weak but warm. Dante felt a sense of belonging he had never known at home. Victor, watching from afar, started his own journey. He attended a support group for parents of LGBTQ children, sitting quietly in the back at first. The stories he heard mirrored his own fears and regrets, chipping away at the walls he had built. He read books Jace recommended, staying up late with pages that challenged everything he thought he knew about strength and love. The climax built slowly. Dante organized a small fundraiser for the youth center where Jace volunteered. Victor agreed to attend, expecting a simple evening. Instead, he watched his son speak passionately about acceptance and second chances. When Dante introduced Jace as his partner, the room applauded. Victor stood there, tears in his eyes, finally seeing the man his son had become: strong, compassionate, true to himself. After the event, in the quiet of the penthouse, Victor sat with both of them. "I was the one who needed saving," he admitted. "From my own narrow views and the fear of losing you. I'm sorry it took me so long." The embrace that followed was the first real one in years, filled with years of unspoken pain and new hope. But growth wasn't linear. There were still hard days when old doubts crept in, when investors pulled back or family friends distanced themselves. Dante and Jace faced them together, supporting each other through the stares and whispers. Victor stood by them now, using his influence to advocate quietly for inclusion in the company. The months that followed brought more changes. Dante took on a new role leading community outreach, blending his business skills with his personal truth. Jace continued his work but started night classes toward a degree in counseling, inspired by how he had helped Dante. Victor sold a portion of the company to focus more on family, traveling with them to places he had always put off. Through it all, the bond between Dante and Jace remained the anchor. Their love wasn't dramatic or flashy. It was in the quiet moments, the shared laughter, the way they faced challenges side by side. Victor watched them and learned what real strength looked like. As the story of their journey spread quietly through the city, others found courage in it. The misunderstandings, the sacrifices, the revelations, all of it had led to a family stronger than before. Victor finally understood that acceptance wasn't weakness. It was the greatest gift he could give. The three of them stood together on the balcony one evening, looking out over the city that had once felt so unforgiving. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility. True or false? The greatest act of love is sometimes letting go of the expectations that bind us. Word count: 1,000. File 6. The days after the fundraiser marked a new chapter for the Kane family. Victor cleared his schedule to spend more time at home, joining Dante and Jace for weekend brunches in the penthouse where conversations flowed without the old tension. He asked questions about their relationship openly, learning about the small ways they supported each other. Jace cooking simple meals after long shifts, Dante helping with Jace's mother's medical appointments. The stories humbled Victor, reminding him of the simple joys he had missed while chasing success. Business continued, but with new priorities. Victor restructured the company to include diversity training, citing his own growth as the reason. Some investors grumbled, but others applauded the change, bringing fresh opportunities. Marcus was gone, replaced by a team that valued integrity over old alliances. Victor felt lighter, as if he had shed a weight he didn't know he carried. Dante thrived in his new role, organizing events that connected the company with local LGBTQ youth groups. He spoke at colleges about his journey, always crediting Jace for the courage it took. Their love deepened through shared experiences, weekend hikes in the Catskills, quiet evenings reading together, the everyday moments that built a life. Jace proposed one evening on the same balcony where their story had nearly ended, and Dante said yes with tears of joy. Victor gave his blessing without hesitation, helping plan a small ceremony that reflected their true selves. Challenges still arose. Old friends distanced themselves, and Jace's family remained distant despite attempts at reconciliation. But the three men faced them as a unit, Victor using his resources to support causes that mattered. He volunteered at the youth center alongside Jace, listening to stories that echoed his son's pain and reinforcing his commitment to change. 1 year later, the family gathered for Thanksgiving at the upstate cabin. Snow dusted the trees as they sat around the table, sharing memories and laughter. Victor raised a glass to second chances and the courage to embrace them. The toast felt earned, a testament to the growth they had all achieved. Dante and Jace married the following spring in a private ceremony with close friends and Victor presiding in his new role as supporter. The day was simple and beautiful, filled with genuine emotion rather than show. Victor walked Dante down the aisle, whispering, "I'm proud of you, both of you." The words healed old wounds, closing the circle. As time passed, the story of their journey inspired others in the city. Dante and Jace continued their work, Jace earning his counseling degree and opening a small practice focused on family acceptance. Victor retired gradually, traveling with them and writing a memoir about his transformation that he never published but shared with those who needed it. The bond between the three remained unbreakable. Victor had learned that family wasn't about perfection or tradition. It was about showing up, listening, and loving without conditions. Dante had found the acceptance he craved, and Jace had gained a father figure he never expected. Their love, born in crisis, had saved them all in ways they never imagined. Looking back from the balcony one quiet evening, the city lights sparkling below, they reflected on how far they had come. The misunderstandings, the secrets, the sacrifices, all of it had led to this moment of peace and connection. The journey wasn't over, but it was theirs, built on truth and courage. True or false? The greatest act of love is sometimes letting go of the expectations that bind us.